Boxing
beats and rhymes.
No one
can do it better.
SHADAISHA Green improved her record to 16-1-11 inside the distance. She's now the unified 168-pound champion, winning a unification against Savannah Marshall, who is now 13-2-11 inside the distance. Savannah looked heavy, is a polite way of describing her condition. Looked like she had bags under her eyes. And this moonlighting between MMA and boxing has resulted in a decline in her abilities. She looked slow. She looked ponderous. That herky-jerky style, Peter Fury style, I guess, with her hands low approach, got her hurt quite badly a couple of times. She did hurt SHADAISHA, I believe, in the mid-rounds, and SHADAISHA came back in the next round and hurt her really bad. It was an untidy fight. Could have went either way. Hometown cooking, perhaps, but if you're fighting away from home, you have to prepare for the worst. I think the decision was fair. They're talking about a rematch, but I don't know. Savannah's lucky that the gene pools in women's boxing are not that strong. I prefer to see SHADAISHA fight Claressa Shields. They were talking about fighting next. SHADAISHA definitely has the power to hurt Claressa, but it depends what Claressa turns up at 168. Will she still be strong at that weight? That Claressa Shields loss looks like it's really affected Savannah badly. I don't think she gave herself the best opportunity with her preparation for this fight. How good is SHADAISHA Green? I don't think she knows. I think if she really believed in herself, she could have perhaps stopped Savannah. And her self-belief is going to determine how well she does in a fight against Claressa. She's got to believe that she's the one. She has to believe it.
boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
ALYCIA BAUMGARDNER, I think she's lived a little too much of that stoppage of Terry Harper and has been billed as this terrific puncher. But has that power really manifested since that win? I don't know. I thought Michaela Mayo beat her. I thought ALYCIA was lucky to get the decision. Then she got popped for peds. She's a very bright, articulate girl, good fashion sense, and she's a personality. Boxing's a short career. You got to make the most of what you got, and she sure is doing that. But I believe she's a tad overrated. Most of the fights on the card were very closely contested, and this was another where there didn't seem too much between them. I'd have to watch it again, because I didn't score. I saw some reports where people said ALYCIA dominated. That's not what I saw. I'd have to watch it again.
boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
Pardon the language, but I've always thought Chantelle Cameron is a bit of a moody cat. But thinking about it, I kind of understand, because they talk about Katie, they talk about Amanda, they talk about Claressa, but Chantelle's name doesn't come up. She's the only boxer as a pro to beat Katie Taylor. And the second fight was close as well. They're one apiece. Chantelle is definitely one of the better boxer punchers out of the women. And she showed glimpses of that yesterday. It wasn't her best performance, but she's got very good punch selection, very good range control, the same type of tools she used to beat Katie. In my opinion, Chantelle would beat Amanda Serrano on boxing skill quite comfortably. That might be controversial, but that's my belief. When Chantelle worked everything off the jab, her gutsy opponent, CAMARA, was busting up around the face, and she did well to stay the whole 10, but women boxers don't force too many stoppages. But I would argue that Cameron and Katie Taylor were the best boxers on the night. Although I didn't see all the fights. I didn't see Ellie Scott me.
boxing
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
Amanda Serrano said not being able to fight 10 threes like the men is denying her stoppages. So when she got her wish a few years back against a Brazilian girl to fight 10 threes, the Brazilian showed a superb pair of legs. Not great offense, but a superb pair of legs. And she went the distance comfortably. I saw from then was that Serrano was not the same fighter if you give her some movement. Katie Taylor switched up her tactics from brawling with Amanda in the first two fights. She moved, got her power punches off, Serrano, she tried to adjust and box more herself, and she did well with the jab. It's a hard one to score. But in the championship rounds for women, which is, let's say, 9 and 10, I think Katie pulled away. I don't think the stiff-legged Amanda has much grounds to complain. Nearly 20,000 people packed out the MSG. Katie Taylor said beforehand she needs me to stand in front of her. So she knew what the tactics were, and she probably knew in the first two fights that she shouldn't be brawling with Amanda, who is a tremendous puncher. And she perhaps got caught up in the occasion in the first two, and she can't complain about that. The first two fights were so good is why there was a need for a third. The aesthetic of the third was a little anticlimactic, where people were expecting more of what they saw in the first two, but Katie wasn't having that. She boxed to instruction and boxed very well. Katie said she doesn't want to fight Amanda again, and that's a chapter that should be closed off. She responded to Chantelle Cameron and a third fight between her and said, with a sharp tongue I may add, that she's earned Chantelle probably more money than she deserves. The Katie Taylor we've seen in this build-up hasn't always been the nice, politely spoken girl from Bray who doesn't want to offend anyone. She has her opinions and she's letting them known. Is this her last fight? I believe the plan will be one more at Croke Park if they can reduce the higher charges, the long-awaited homecoming. But who would she fight? The only worthy opponent is the only boxer to have beaten her, who she's won a piece with, and that's Chantelle Cameron. I don't think Katie's that stupid. There's a good chance Chantelle would beat Katie. So I don't know what Katie does next, we'll see. Unfortunately for Amanda Serrano, her great career may now be defined by the 3 losses to Katie Taylor. Kind of like Michael Spinks's great career is defined by his final fight and loss to Mike Tyson. It's one of them things. So who is the greatest female boxer of all time? Is it Katie Taylor? Let's have your answers in the comments section.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
David Morrell is someone who scored a lot of early knockouts on them PBC cards. And as impressive as it looked, they moved him up for an interim title when he had 11 fights. David Benavidez had 29 fights. And he hasn't really learnt his trade. And we saw that against IMAN KHATAEV, the way he was getting caught by them looping right hands and wide hooks by the very powerful Russian based in Australia. But let's face it, he's crude and he telegraphs his shots, but he does have a lot of power, and there seems to be almost radar on some of them big looping shots, and he gets away with it. He put David Morrell on the floor with one of them looping shots in the 5th, and the facts are is David fought KHATAEV's fight. KHATAEV nearly got stopped late. He took one uppercut which nearly took his head clean off his shoulders, and somehow he ate it. The reason he didn't get a decision is because of the controversy of his 2024 PED violation. They couldn't let this guy win. They've already did pretty well to suppress the story. It would have been pretty hard to do so if he had got the W. The story would have trended. But giving Morrell a controversial points decision, which in a fight he was expected to win, is convenient circumvention. They're lucky KHATAEV didn't lay Morrell out. It's not dissimilar to what happened to Jarrell Miller. Clearly beat Andy Ruiz. It's obvious why he didn't get the decision. The question would come up, why are they putting these blatant PED violators? In Miller's case, a serial violator. Why are they putting him on these Riyadh season cards, paying him vast sums of money? This is one way to get around having to answer these questions. Now you're asking, well, why bother do all that? Why not just not put them on the cards? Well, Miller has a niche demo who like to see him throwing his weight around in media, events, pressers and weigh-ins, etc. And KHATAEV is a fan-friendly fighter, if there ever was one. So they put them on the card, knowing they serve some commercial value in building the fights up and their fighting style in the ring. But if an opportunity springs up where they can rub them on the scorecards and not have to air out the dirty laundry.
Man, shut the fuck up.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
Subriel Matias became a 2-time light welterweight champion, taking a razor-thin majority decision over Alberto Puello, who himself had a title reign where he survived some wafer-thin decisions. PUELLO done enough clean work to retain his title, but the reason he was unable to do so, there's a few reasons, and one of them is a bit of a wacky theory, but I'm going to go for it. But first off, we can't count out Matias's bodywork. And when he wanted to go to work, PUELLO often broke off the exchange by looking to clinch and looking to hold. That could be one of the reasons the judges scored against him. So what's my theory? Why Matias got the decision? Perhaps with all this talk of Tom and Jerry fights, and Turkey saying we're not going to have these fights, we're going to get rid of them. Make the ring smaller, knockout bonuses, performance bonuses. Lesser of two evils. Who's less likely to give you Tom and Jerry fights? Subriel Matias or Alberto Puello? Adios, Alberto Puello.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one.
Can do it better.
We're involved in some, Joe Parker as well. Don't forget Joe Parker.
Yep, bloody hell. So I mean, it's a serious stable that.
Yeah, it's.
In the fight week, obviously we had that press conference. A lot was said between yourself and Edgar Berlanga. I think he called you a fathead or something.
Yeah, well, my head's not small, is it? But after last night, he's now got a fat head, hasn't he? A big fat head, unfortunately for him.
Yeah.
It's come completely on top for him. If you behave like that, you've got to make sure you're in the fight, because it was quite embarrassing now. The king of New York is now Hamza Sheeraz, the gentleman.
I think Adam Azim put a tweet out that said he couldn't cash a check that he wrote.
No. There's a bit of fun, but he just went over the top, didn't he? He went over the top with it all. He was very abusive. He got an equaliser, didn't he? What we call an equaliser in England. He was adamant that he was going to knock Hamza out in 5 rounds. Adamant. It wasn't even a conversation. So I don't want to talk about it no more. He's going down in 5. Unfortunately, if you saw this interview, Keith, you got absolutely mugged.
The interesting thing is, Edgar Berlanga, he actually didn't do too much wrong in the fight. Used his jab, landed some left hooks. The upper body movement looked pretty good as he avoided Sheeraz's attacks. His big issue was he got too comfortable in the pocket. And Sheeraz, who Frank Warren compares to Thomas Hearns, to me is more like Alexis Arguello. Tommy's piston-like jab, probably the fastest in the business. He didn't lose rounds. Arguello and our kid here will lose rounds, and then they're both skinny, and sometimes it will look like B-level fighters, and all of a sudden the fight will be over. That wasn't Tommy Hearns. That's Alexis Arguello. This was a tense chess match where neither man was trying to make mistakes. Edgar aborted the chess match too early. Edgar found he could get his jab off and had faster hands than Sheeraz. Edgar needed to frustrate Hamza, make him miss, land your shots and get out of there. He underestimated how aggressive Hamza can be and how hard he hits. And he found out the hard way. The referee tried to save Berlanga, that's what it looked like to me, after 2 heavy knockdowns in the 4th. I mean, you wipe down the fallen opponent's gloves, look in his eyes, you're right to go on? Yes? No? But there he is counselling Edgar Berlanga. The bell sounded. In hindsight, everyone's saying the corner should have stopped it. They shouldn't have allowed Berlanga to come out for the 5th. But they did. Powerful left-right combination. Edgar's glove touched the canvas. Another official knockdown. Referee waved it off. Now, some people are going to say Sheeraz got hit too much. I'm here to tell you this now. From the outside, we can critique what we see in the ring. But once you're in there, there's only a certain amount of tools you can use in one fight. It is what it is. You can't do everything. If Sheeraz's strength is staying in the pocket, even though he's got them long arms and in theory it probably shouldn't be his strength, let him fight his fight, because he has a good chance of knocking out anyone who stands in there with him. It is what it is. From what I've seen, boxers are hardwired to do what they know they're physically capable of. Hamza knows he has power. His game is going to be centered around power. Has he improved since the Bradley Skeet fight? Yeah, he has. But not much. Technically. This is a confidence thing. It's the ability to handle the occasion. It's the ability to manifest what you think the probable outcome will be of your fight. So from that early Bradley Skeet fight, we saw what he's not good at. And he's probably never going to be that good at stealing rounds, have a great back foot game. Probably never going to be him. Doesn't mean he can't be a successful fighter though. Carlos Adames didn't abandon that good upper body movement after a few rounds. And I pointed this out in my build-up. Carlos Adames had that good upper body movement. And I said, these are things that Edgar can't do. And Edgar came in the ring with upper body movement.
That's the thing. He started well with the defense, but you just got to be patient. Shakur, he can do defense for 12. Some people can only do defense for 1 or 2. Defense is hard, man. Nice one, Hamza. Wow. He humbled him up really good.
Defense is not just finisher or blocking. Defense is a sense of awareness. Defense is Hamza knowing, I push you on the back foot, you can't fight. And that's what happened. It was up to Edgar to make the adjustment. When he saw that Hamza wanted to bang it out with him, he should have made an adjustment. But that takes a certain respect for the craft. He should have started moving and having a look. But he's been indoctrinated into this tough guy. I'm going to knock him out at all costs. What Turkey's done with the Tom and Jerry thing is a really good thing. And he probably doesn't even know what he's did. He's going to separate the men from the boys, because to be a boxer, you've got to be able to be a good problem solver. How do you think all these knockout punchers get their knockouts? Well, you think they're just wading in, swinging their hands, hoping to get lucky? No, they're solving problems. But that takes a certain respect for the game. Terror Squad, Remy Ma and Fat Joe, they're not used to you in that situation unless you're trying to get a record contract. When I was watching it live, I was saying Sheeraz looks slow. But it's a 12 rounder. The rounds will be there when you need to negate them. 1 through to 12. They're not going nowhere. And he made adjustments. The leverage that kid can get when he's on the front foot makes him very, very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. But the potential is there for him to go down as one of our best punchers. I think Hamza needs to work on his jab a bit more. It wasn't as accurate as I thought it could be. But like I say, this is him and Andy Lee's show. He's got them big, long arms, but he's able to lead with hooks and uppercuts and pull it off. That's something special to him. You don't have to do things by the quote-unquote rule book. You can make your own rule book with muscle memory, with repetition and practice. In saying that, there are going to be tougher challenges with fighters who are going to go in there with the mentality that I have 12 rounds to figure this out. Berlanga's not there. Berlanga was talking down to Shakur Stevenson. Berlanga was happy to be the headliner when he's never beat a legit top 10 ranked fighter in his career. But there he was talking down to an Olympian and a free weight champion. You got to humble yourself. You got to respect the process. You got to respect the hierarchy. Edgar talked himself into a situation that he perhaps wasn't ready to handle. And he found out the hard way. He's been through the top promotional outlets out there. Top Rank, Matchroom, and tried to style on them. Now he's a free agent. But who really wants to deal with a hype job with a big mouth right now is the question. If he had stayed good with Eddie Hearn, they could have started the process of rehabilitation, which he will do anyway without Eddie. But Eddie could have perhaps helped him have a smoother transition when he decides to return to the ring. What was he doing arguing with Oscar De La Hoya? Like someone pointed out, Oscar is neither promoting you or Hamza Sheeraz. It's got nothing to do with your fight. The gun simulation with his hands pointing at Hamza Sheeraz the last time it was Eddie Hearn is very immature. It's very immature. But when you see someone pointing simulated handgun signs at people, I look at it and I think about Frank Warren. There's not a Frank Warren fighter who would dream of doing that. And Frank Warren would not have them on Queensbury. Andy Lee would not train Hamza Sheeraz if he was doing bull crap like that. And to a degree, Edgar has had enablers. Keith Connolly, his manager, whoever's training Edgar, have been yes men. And because they're getting the checks from either Top Rank, Matchroom or the Saudis, they've gave Edgar's low vibrational antics carte blanche. And now, Keith Connolly, you've got what you wanted. Your fighter's a free agent who everybody thinks is a hype job. Can't go back to Bob Arum, can't go back to Eddie Hearn. Perhaps the PBC will sacrifice him to Caleb Plant, if Caleb's got anything left in the tank. That would be actually a good fight because they're both struggling to keep their careers on life support. He'd probably have to go over and get that PBC money right now. You know, there's people saying that Hamza has advanced his case for a shot at Canelo. Well, that's if Canelo beats Crawford, and that's a big if. Very big if. I don't see it. Probably not going to be in Canelo's timeline. Risk reward, probably not. But just having his name mentioned alongside fights with Canelo tells you that the UK have a potential pay-per-view star. And he seemed to have went down a treat in New York. He really did. And this card has erased the memory of what happened in Times Square in May just gone.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
So now let's go to what should have been the main event. We needed to see Shakur languishing on the ropes, getting hit more than usual to say he was in a good fight. So what did we see? We saw Shakur shelling up on the ropes, but against someone throwing so much punches, yeah, he's going to get hit more than usual. Zepeda's body punching was pretty good, but Shakur took them pretty well. And although he didn't snap Zepeda's head back with any headshots or anything like that, Shakur's own body shots took some starch out of Zepeda's want to march forward. As Zepeda, fatigued and mentally taxed by the counter-punching skills of Shakur, he stopped using his jab, and when he did, Shakur read him like a book, and the fight became more increasingly one-sided. Zepeda did have success early on, rocking Shakur with a jab while Shakur was on the ropes. Zepeda's output is always going to lead to debates. Should the scorecards have been tighter because of the amount of punches he threw? But it was a quality versus quantity issue here, and quality was in Shakur's favour. Zepeda, whose head only moves when his head gets hit, made it easy for Shakur to pick his shots. I don't want to say steal the rounds, but he didn't quite dominate the rounds. Scorecards were too wide. Shakur did enough to win rounds, but didn't throw enough punches to try and hurt Zepeda or stop him. So when Shakur does ask for big fights, and the industry doesn't respond in a way he would like them to, you have to understand there's a couple of audiences there, perhaps 2 or 3 audiences. There's the Shakur Stevenson fans, who either like the way he boxes or they bought into the brand. There's the casual market, who will probably buy into a fighter scoring a lot of knockouts defending his belt. And the way Shakur fights, Shakur has to go for long-term legacy. He's looking for the short-term big fights with the likes of Tank. Let's say if Ryan was at 135 and these type of fights. But the fights he could get, let's say a rematch with De Los Santos. I don't think Keyshawn can make 135 no more. But these are the type of fights he could get. Don't want to talk about Tank because it's same old, straining out the anal. The context is not complex to vex. I'm not saying Shakur don't deserve the fights. I'm saying in this era where they don't want the Mickey Mouse or the Tom and Jerry, whatever the metaphor is, where they're playing risk reward, we've got to deal with the reality. I'm not saying he shouldn't get the fights. Champions should fight other champions. Champions should defend against their mandatories. And mandatories shouldn't be ducking their title fights, like William Zepeda did for a little while with Shakur. Andy Cruz, both promoted by Matchroom. Easy fight to make. A difficult fight if you take. And he's not going to get the mainstream acclaim he desires from them fights. But in terms of his legacy, if we're talking about Hall of Famer, all-time greats, these fights will do a lot to achieve status like that. Lamont Roach is another good fight. And there's a lot of fighters in that position who are not getting that mainstream acclaim, but there's good fights out there for them. Andy Cruz, tough fight. Lamont Roach, tough fight. Edwin De Los Santos rematch, tough. But you know, from what I hear, that Raymond Maratala doesn't want to fight Andy Cruz, defending his sanctioning belt strap at 135, because he knows what's coming. Maybe he fancies his chances more against Shakur than Andy Cruz in terms of risk reward. But I believe Andy is his mandatory. The people who should perhaps have the boogeyman title, people ain't even talking about. All of a sudden, being a boogeyman actually gets you some type of status these days. Or it's a popular title, let's say. But if you take a logical look at the context of what a boogeyman is someone who's hidden from the media and mainstream spotlight. The boogeyman is not someone everyone is talking about. Oh, everyone's scared to face him. That's not a boogeyman. Someone like Andy Cruz would be more appropriate with that title, because nobody knows who he is. And there's a reason for that. I give credit to Shakur for the circumstances that surrounded the fight. The Tom and Jerry topic. People questioning, is he just going to run around the ring in fear of William Zepeda? I think he addressed that to a degree. There's still going to be some who think he's not an exciting fighter. And he's not. He's competent. And if you're a boxing connoisseur, you will appreciate his work. His deal with Eddie Hearn has ran out. But at 28, we've got to keep it real. He was relegated to chief support. The main event wasn't even a title fight. The guy who negotiated to take this A-side main event slot got battered. And some guy from Britain who destroyed that guy stole the show from Berlanga, stole the show from Shakur, who were both battling for the main event slot. At least Shakur won his fight. But by the end of the night, they were calling Hamza Sheeraz the king of New York.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.